How you doing, guys? Ricky from Average Eskate Reviews, and we're back with another video. So this one we're going to be talking about board maintenance. Me and Chris are going to be going over the way that we both sort of maintain our board, or clean our board, shall we say, when we decide to do that, which is not that often. But nevertheless, we're going to jump into the video and just talk a little bit about how to clean your board, how to maintain it, and some of the things that you need to maybe consider and look out for when cleaning and maintaining your board. But before we jump into the video, if you haven't liked and subscribed to the channel, consider doing so. But nevertheless, let's jump into this one. So when I typically clean or maintain my board, the first thing that I tend to do is I tend to completely strip my board back down to bare everything. I take the bearings out, I take all the screws out, loosen the motors off, the belts, the gears, everything comes off it completely. That way I can start from sort of a fresh canvas, clean everything to build it back up into a complete board. So first thing that I like to do is check my wheels, check to make sure that I've still got air in them, that the tire pressure's okay, that we've got no punches. Just have a look around the wheel, see if there's any splits, anything stuck in the rubber on the wheel or anything like that, just to make sure that they're in good condition. And just sort of for reference, in terms of how often I actually maintain and clean my board, is whenever I really have the time and I look at my board and think, you know, you're looking a bit dirty, you could do with some love. I'll give it a clean, but this is not very often, but I do it every now and again. So just bear that in mind when I'm talking about this. But after I've sort of checked over the tyres and made sure that everything's okay with them, I'll pop all the bearings out of all the wheels, the gear drive, everything, and then I'll completely clean those. And the way that I like to clean these is I normally put them in a solution, which is a bearing solution that completely cleans them. I also like to make sure that the bearings are spinning freely, they're not sort of grinding or there's no crunchy sounds inside them, just to make sure that they're all good and working in the way that they should be. If there is any that are sort of broken or grinding slightly, then I'll just get rid of them and replace them. They're not very expensive, and the last thing you're going to want is to go out on a ride to find one of your bearings completely blows out on you, and that's your ride essentially over. So just clean your bearings, make sure there's no grinding, make sure they're spinning freely and there's no weird sounds coming from them, and you should be good to go. Right, next what I like to do is take a look at the bushings. So with the bushings on my board, I like to completely put them in some soapy water, completely clean them so that they're nice and as shiny as possible and that there's no dirt or debris left on them. And I like to just have a quick check over just to see if there's any cracks, if they're splitting, if they're bulging too much, which just means they've been over tightened, or just to make sure that they've kept their shape. If there's any splits, if they're starting to bulge a little bit like that, any cracks, or they're just looking a bit raggedy and old, I'll just get some new ones, chuck those ones out and put fresh ones in ready to go. And the way that I like to re-lube them or grease them up to put them back in is normally I get like a little pan, and I usually just get some car motor oil, and I just dip the bushings in the motor oil and then put them back together and then wipe off any excess oil that may be there. And then with the trucks, I normally like to just put them in a bowl of soapy water, just make sure that I get all the dirt off, they're nice and clean, and then I'll just stick them on the towel in the sunshine or just dry them off with the towel itself. Now, when it comes to sort of the gears, the belts and the motor itself, I like to just free up all the screws, take the gears off, take the belts off. The belts, normally I'll just check over those to make sure nothing's split, nothing's frayed, and they're in good condition still. And I'll usually just grab like a baby wipe or something like that and just give it a wipe round there just to take any excess dirt or grime that may be on there, just so that they're nice and clean and fresh. I wouldn't want to put those in sort of a soapy water or anything like that, because that could actually degrade the compound that they're made out of and actually cause them to crack or fray. So that's what I like to do with the belts. When it comes to the gears, because they're made of like a plastic compound material, I just put them in a bowl of soapy water, again scrubbing brush, get them nice and clean, leave them to either dry if it's a sunny day, if not just dry them off with a towel. And with the motors, I just like to grab like a baby wipe, just go around them, get any excess grease or debris that may be stuck in there, just giving them a good clean and just make them as nice and shiny and new as possible. And with these screws on the board, I like to just go over all the screws just to make sure none of them have started to rust or degrade, or none of them have started threading. And if there is any that I notice that aren't in great condition, I'll just swap them out and put some fresh screws in. And also another thing that I like to do with my wheels, once I've checked over them to make sure that everything's the way that it should be, is I like to just put them again in a soapy bowl of water, scrubbing brush, just go over there with a toothbrush or a scrubbing brush, clean them up, get them nice and clean, leave them to dry or dry them with a towel, and then they're ready to go back on the board. And then the last thing that I definitely do with my board, which makes the world of difference, this really does make the most difference out of all of everything that you do on your board in terms of the way that it looks, is cleaning the deck. And the way that I like to clean my deck on the Carbon from Evolve is I like to get a bowl of, not soapy water, but I use floor cleaner in there, just a bit of floor cleaner, probably like a ratio of about 50-50, 1-to-1 floor cleaner to water, and a toothbrush, and I just dip the toothbrush in there, and then I scrub over all my deck, and then use a tea towel to absorb and pull out all that dirt that's in the don't know why I've done that, pull out all that dirt that's stuck in the grip tape, and it comes up absolutely spot on. So in terms of the way I like to maintain my board, keep it clean, every now and again I do it. I'd probably say every couple of months maybe I go over and just do this to make sure everything's working as it should. If there is something that I notice in between those time frames, then I'll just sort it straight away. But essentially every couple of months I like to just go over and give it a really nice clean and make it look as almost brand new again. So that's the way that I like to maintain my board. Let me know in the comment section down below if there's any ways that you do different to me, or do you do some of the ways the same as me, and how often do you maintain or clean your board yourself. But I'm going to hand you over to Chris now, so he's going to let you know how he maintains and looks after his board. So I'll see you in the next one, guys.
Hey guys, so taking over from where Ricky left off, first thing I've got to call him out on is that he does not clean his board anywhere near as often as he says. It's normally when I call him out for his board looking absolutely disgusting that he actually does something, but I had to just drop that in there, throwing him under the bus a little bit.
He's lying.
But in terms of how I look after my board, I think I'm a little bit more OCD than Ricky is, because normally after every single ride I have to clean just like the deck itself, the wheels, the underbelly of the board. I don't really go as far as like taking it apart. I just like to clean off whatever I've gotten on it from that particular ride, just because I like everything inside my house to be as clean as it can possibly be. But that's me. If you think that's a bit too extreme, let me know down below in the comment section and how often you clean yours. But very similar to what Ricky said, I don't think that we actually check over our boards maybe as often as we should, or maybe as often as other people do. It's just not something I felt that I really need to do. There's times that I'll admit that I've gone out on my board and found, you know, issues that I could have really rectified if I had just looked over the board very quickly before I left. But this is just kind of how we do it. In terms of belts, us both riding belt-driven boards, we do carry spare belts with us, but that's pretty much about as far as we go. We never typically carry spare wheels or spare inner tubes with us, even though that we should. I did have some at one point, but after I replaced one of my inner tubes not too long ago, I've not bothered to pick up some more, which is something I should probably do. In terms of what I'd suggest on top of what Ricky said, is carrying spares is definitely worth doing. If you have wheels that have inner tubes, carry spare inner tubes. It might sound like an irritation to do so, but make sure you do it. If you have a belt-driven board, carry spare belts. These are really simple things that you can do to make sure that you don't have anything go seriously wrong. And if you can, where possible, a spare remote is also a really good idea, because if you saw the video that we filmed in Spain, on that particular trip, I've never broken a board remote before, but that trip I broke 2 of them. So make sure that you can have those spare parts if you do. Now, in terms of what I do differently from the way Ricky looks after his board, everything's pretty much the same way, but there was something that I tried just because I didn't have anything to grease my bushings with when I changed them over, and that was shoe wax.
What's the matter with you?
Now, the first couple of rides it worked really well. There was no squeak, but of course it dried, and the squeak was 10 times worse than it's ever been before, so definitely don't try that. I'm also using motor oil inside my bushings. It's not, you know, the best thing that you can use. Of course, there's other things to lube and grease your bushings that you could use specifically for riding longboards and electric skateboards, but the motor oil's been working fine for the both of us, so we've stuck to it. It's what was available while we were doing it. In terms of the other things I do differently, the only other thing I do with cleaning my deck is I use grip tape cleaner with like roasting hot water. What I'll do is I'll position the deck of the board up like you're putting your board up against a wall, but I'll spin it the other way so the motors are up top and just the, you know, wheels are on the bottom, and then I'll just angle it so the water runs down the deck, and I'll pour hot water onto the deck, which loosens up any grit, mud, debris, or anything that's stuck to the actual grip tape that's on the board, or the spray grip tape, however you want to refer to it, on the Bamboo GTR, and then go over that while it's wet, while it's still steaming, with the grip tape cleaner, and that removes every bit of grime, leaving the deck looking essentially brand new. Now, aside from that, the only other thing that I mentioned earlier on in the video that I do differently is I do clean my board pretty much every time I get off it. So that's either I'll use baby wipes, or I prefer to use antibacterial wipes because, again, a little bit OCD. It's how I've always been. Aside from this COVID crap, it's just how I've been. I'll use that to go around the battery enclosure, the wheels, the motors, pretty much everywhere that I can get to remove all of the grip from the bottom of the board. And I'll also typically clean the street wheels or the all-terrain wheels as well. So when I put them up against a wall in my house, which are all white, I don't leave marks on the walls. It sounds a bit extreme, but I just prefer to do that. You don't have to clean your board every single day you get off it, but everybody's different. Now, the only other thing that I do is I try, especially with the all-terrain wheels, the 6-inch and the 7-inch, I really try and check the tread that's left on them. I tend to ride pretty hard and, you know, carve and corner pretty sharply and aggressively, which means my wheels don't last anywhere near as long as they would typically if you're just kind of like riding in a straight line, riding to and from to get to places. So I definitely like to check the tread on the wheels just to make sure that I've still got enough grip or bite on the road. So while I'm carving and shredding, I don't have to worry about the board unexpectedly sliding out. And it also means that I can kind of set myself up for ordering another set of wheels should I need to do so, because the worst thing is having, you know, wheels that are a little bit risky to go out with and not having spares available yet, because of course companies run out. Right now, for example, I know that the 6-inch wheels are sold out on the Evolve UK website, so it means that because I've ordered some in advance, I've got a spare set should I need to be able to switch mine out. So just doing things like that, also with street wheels as well, making sure you have plenty of life left in the wheels to ensure that you can have a good time when you're out there, so you don't have to worry about losing your grip or sliding out while you're out on a ride. Doing these little things can definitely help to ensure that you have a much better experience while you're out there. But something else that I will add is also, if you're going to be riding out in slightly undesirable conditions, a little bit damp, a little bit of rain, I'm not saying that I advise it, but we all do it, we've done it plenty of times, is to check the battery enclosure itself. Remove all of the screws from the top of the boards and check the seal around the battery enclosure and also the motor control unit. It has a kind of like a foamy rubbery seal around the edges of it to make sure no moisture or liquid gets inside. And what I found, having taken that off a couple of times, is sometimes straight from the Evolve factory or straight from other manufacturers' factories, the seal might not be going the entire way around the board. So it's worth just checking to make sure it's positioned properly, it's not slipped, it's not split. That will save you a lot of hassle, because we all know what motor control units and brand new batteries can cost if you need to have them replaced. Like, taking these little steps will really go a long way, and it just kind of gives you a little bit more peace of mind while you're out riding your board. But the only other thing that I'd mention is, I will say for sure that me and Ricky don't kind of like check every element of the board as often as I know other riders do. We're definitely that group of riders that kind of like figures out something's gone wrong after it's gone wrong, rather than spotting it before we go out. It makes sense to try and avoid doing that by checking your board more frequently, but of course each to their own. I found that the way these boards have been built, the way that they're constructed, the way that they work on a day-to-day basis, I don't feel the need to have to kind of inspect every element of the board every single time I ride or every single week. So for me, I'm kind of around the same sort of mark as Ricky. Maybe every sort of 4 to 6 weeks I'm kind of checking over the belts, checking over the motors to make sure they're not dented or anything like that. But we don't really tend to stress about it too much. It's kind of just get out and ride and hope for the best, I guess. Haphazardous riders as always. As a side note, it's also worthwhile checking the air pressure if you have wheels that have inner tubes inside them, just to make sure that it's not deflated or it doesn't have a flat. Again, that will affect the amount of speed and range you're able to get on the board, so it's worth doing. But again, it's something that we could probably stand to do a little bit more than we actually do, because I know the first time I put all-terrain wheels on my board, I didn't really check the tire pressure until I decided to change from 7-inch to 6-inch. So make sure that you guys do it just to avoid any issues outside while you're riding. It's also worth removing the belt covers, because I remember an issue that we had on a separate board was that we thought one of the motors was making a noise. And when we dismantled the board for a completely separate reason, we found that there was a dried leaf caught inside the belt cover, and that's what was causing that weird motor noise. So while you're checking your board over, you're checking the belt over, don't just look at it inside the actual pulley system and gear system. Completely remove the wheel and take the belt off and inspect it off of the board, so you can see if there's anything caught inside each of the kind of like teeth on the belt, if there's something caught inside the belt cover itself. All of this will save you a lot of hassle in the long run. But aside from that, I think that's really about it. If there's anything that you guys do differently, or you check your boards way more frequently than we do or way less, comment down below and let us know. But aside from that, guys, thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Make sure you thumbs up so you can stay up to date with all of the videos that we post, and have the notification bell turned on so you are notified when we post a new video. And I will catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching, guys, and take care.